Well, hello, everybody. It's the Expanded Understanding Podcast. I'm Zach, and this is my co-host. I guess your co-host too, Aaron. And we're
Well,
happy to
how
be here with you. Well, howdy,
howdy, Jack.
Aaron. How you doing?
I know, sir. How you doing today? How's that horse has been treating you? You've been riding.
Oh, well, it's got me riding nice and bow-legged and, a little chapped up in the crotch, but I ain't letting that bring my day down. You
Uh,
bet your ass, buckaroo.
you've been all chapped up. You haven't been riding that horse very long, sir, have you?
Oh, well, it's actually because I've been riding the horse so long and so often. It just like when I started riding horses, it got chapped up and it's just never gone away.
It's that
Because I never
perma-chap.
got off the horse. I'm
That
actually
perma-chap.
on the horse right now.
Oh, I see. What kind of horse is this? Is this a digital chair horse?
It's a pinto.
Nice.
Yeah, it is nice, actually. A real thoroughbred, that one, I must say. So, yeah, I mean, reality can be whatever you want, you got stories and like, painted on the walls of places and shit like that, talking about cherubims and fucking these gods riding all kinds of crazy animals that got wings and lion heads with snake tails and all this weird stuff. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's just fun to imagine yourself like that. Yeah.
Sounds fun to me.
Like, what sounds funner? Being a human living on Earth trying to figure out what you're doing, or being a rapscallion pirate captain looking through the treacherous waves of the open sea for the mighty, mighty bounty that awaits on the lost island hidden in the cove. I don't know, the second one actually sounds a lot funner.
Sounds a lot better. I don't think I'm going to argue with that. I mean,
I'm
other
pretty
people may
sure
not,
you
but
do the same thing in both stories, but the second one sounds funner.
it's true.
And then, I mean, even
Funner.
if it isn't funner, at least it sounds funner, right? Like it's got that going for it.
It's true. Could be really brutal and like you got scurvy and all this other stuff going on there that's not mentioned. That's in the subtext. If it's not even in the subtext, just leave that out. It sounds amazing. I'm shitty, but it sounds fun. Sounds like way better.
If you actually bring Eminem on board and you have him rhyme orange the whole time, you don't ever get scurvy. So there's a trick to that one.
Ooh, nice. Well done.
Yeah. So, but he's
Nice,
hard. He's
Charlotte.
hard to get. Pretty expensive. That guy, the
I don't know.
Eminems.
Unless you just pitch the idea to him, he's like, you know what? That sounds like fun. I'm just gonna do that.
It's
That's
like
cool. Let's do it.
actually being a rap superstar, not that great.
I'm over it.
Pirate captain, and you're like, actually, that's my boat.
Yeah.
First
Yeah.
mate,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Maybe
We'll see.
pirate rapper. You know, I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do. But yeah, there's
How
some
about-
roles you can't take care, bro.
How
I'm captain.
about you come on board and you be the dude who sings, and we'll see, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's start with that and see what rules open up. All right, come on,
Yeah.
come this way.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you got to work your way up through the ranks. You can't just go from being, a world-class recording artist to operating your life on a pirate ship as though you were in the golden age of piracy and just think that you're just going to, like, walk on board and be, like, running the show.
Right.
Being a world-class recording artist doesn't mean anything in that world. You know what I mean? He's like,
Right.
you know how many hit albums I have? They're like, you know I don't know what an album is? Right? Like, it
Right.
means nothing. They're like, actually, you're some white dude, and you don't, you sing songs.
Well, which is
That's
great
what-
because then you have to create some kind of new song or some kind of new expression that matters to the people around you in that moment. So if you have people that don't appreciate your music, well, you might not
Yeah.
have a fun time about, or learn to create a new type of music. Maybe don't pigeonhole yourself or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Pirate shanties sound cool as shit, I think.
What's a pirate shanty?
I guess I'll look up one of them so that we can actually hear them. But they're, kind of like, iconically, they would have been the songs that pirates sang on boats. So let me see if I can find one.
Oh yeah, okay, like the yeah.
Here, okay, we'll share this right now.
Yo ho, pirate's life for me, that kind of shit.
For beggars, a song to sing for saints, a song to sing for wealthy men or out
This is jamming. I could
like,
fill with some gold and, fight off a kraken and such to music like this.
why they put it in Pirates of the
Drop
Caribbean.
a drop a 1 in chat or a comment on the video if you could find a crack into music like that. Because I definitely do. Yeah. I don't know who this person is. Their song is called The Pirate Shanty, and it's a channel called Worldwide Adventurers. Maybe like go over there and subscribe to them just because we listen to their Pirate Shanty.
Oh, hold on.
Hold
Hold on, it's a ballad. It's a ballad.
Set out on the ocean blue to escape tyranny. We keep our many hearts alive so long we roam the sea. A man once walked along the shore and called he out to me. I see you are a fisherman, a lover of the sea. I know this world's a wretched place, but if you'll follow me, take all of your burdens, and pirates we shall be. Yo ho, yo ho. Yo ho, yo ho. Yo ho, yo ho. Hope is now before us, and misery at last. We could not care the lesser for the men who say yaka. So let the howling winds blow in and take over the blast. Release the wheel in all your sins, for you are free at last. Swap the deck, my clever lad, and listen close to me. Learn my ways, and soon one day a captain you shall be. Climb the rigging, mount the mast, and say, what can you see? Fleet upon the starboard side. In battle we shall meet.
It's pretty cool, dude. Honestly, I could rock this stuff for
Yeah, no doubt.
probably a while.
The problem man of courage does not aim upon the stars. Do not fear, whatever fear, with doom is nigh at hand. Your end marks the beginning of a life in
I
paradise.
like that quatrain.
Yeah.
The battle rages and on into the night. With crashing swords and pistol shots upon the decks we fight. Flash our wits and cannonballs, the finest of the fleet. The admiral walks the plank in the shame of his defeat. So raise a drink to plunder and lift a toast to
That
sport.
voice.
Cheer the band in bravery, the enemy we foil. Record another round and wave
It'd be cool to like just make these up with your mates, as they would probably say. Because like everybody can just do like a quatrain to like tell some moral of the story, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Awesome. Community shit. This is fun. Like real human beings just fucking making music, right?
It's a pirate cipher, you know what I mean? You get a bunch of people in a circle and you just go around the circle.
Pour upon an isle of wealthy fools and babes, who drink all night and sleep all day on the labor of the slaves. When the sun is set, we break off all the chains and share with them our plunder and our free men they are made. We pull up in the tavern with our new men and mates. Soon the rich will stumble calling for their runaways. The barman sends them off with ales, they ain't no taking away. And the rest are gone one aging will remember stay.
You're chiding them on to sing it?
I was once a young lad, sailing by the charts. I did not savor wind nor water, nor admire the stars. Now I have grown old and frail, and do not journey far. I only long to sail the seas once more to find my heart.
Well, come aboard and boys long, we make for unnap shores. Ride the stormy seas with us, you'll find that soul of yourn. Leave your wealth behind you and your bitter scorn. Make your home with slaves and sinners, then you'll be reborn. Yo-ho, yo-ho. Yo-ho, yo-ho. Yo-ho, yo-ho. Yo-ho, yo-ho.
Not
I
gonna
love that we
lie,
just
I
went through the
really
whole
liked
thing.
it. I really liked it. I had
Yeah.
to go through the whole thing. I was thoroughly enjoying it, honestly. I really like them.
That was great.
I think it's a cool thing. I really think it'd be even cooler to do with like I was saying, like with your homies. You know what I mean? Like if you had
Yeah.
like 25 people at a party and everybody was like willing just to like, cause it's not like complex or anything. Like all the rhymes are single syllable and shit. It ain't hard at all. And it would be like, I don't know, it'd just be so funny because you could, a lot of jokes could get pulled into it and shit like that. I don't know. It'd
Yeah.
just be a fucking good
No,
time.
totally. Yeah, it's kind of like freestyling, right? But in a totally different kind of pirate vibe. It's a different like group fucking
Yeah.
deal because like people who are freestyling don't necessarily get to participate, but in that dynamic, everybody's a part of it somehow. And if you feel creative in a moment, jump in and do a fucking 4-bar set or whatever. Fucking great. Like awesome.
Yeah. And like you could always go like and line it out from the beginning that you go like 4 people and then you do like a sequence of some kind of chorus that everybody can do. You know what I mean? So you keep
Yeah.
everybody engaged and it gives you kind of a crescendo like every 16 bars and shit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it could be really fun. If there's
agree.
past lives, I was a pirate. 1000%, dude. Like
Yeah, come
I'm
on.
just I love the whole like culture of it so much, you know.
Yeah.
It's just so intriguing to me. There's no way if past lives are a thing, there's no way I wasn't a pirate. Like not a chance.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's funny. Okay, on that dynamic, not that we have to necessarily dive into this, it just made me think of it. But like, so past lives, we talked about whether we've had one. There's definitely epigenetic expressions or DNA lineage. Probably the best metaphor for that or analogy, I guess, would be or straight. It's very similar apples to apples comparison would be like the Animus from the what's the video game, the Assassin's Creed, where they basically go back through his DNA, through his specific DNA, where he's been assassin through his different and put him back in that lifetime, that body, working out certain missions, getting artifacts, whatever. So I get that dynamic, but also let's say someone just really likes pirates. They've never even thought about pirates in their life. They see pirates, they resonate, and just by choosing to tune into that, can fully embody that reality. But it's
I
different, I
think
guess, when
so.
you felt. Yeah, but it's different when you actually felt it your whole life. That would make it seem like it's from your DNA in a sense, or maybe something kind of with your kid. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we get really like muddled up trying to determine like what is the source of this information.
Yeah,
For me personally, like I kind of got tired of doing that, although I still engage with the concepts, but for
yeah,
my own self, it's like
yeah,
experience person had, experience I had, like whatever, and it really I don't care whether it was a past life or it was a dream you had or really anything like that. I mean, through my own lucid dreaming experiences, I feel like even our dreams are really just like parallel realities. And
yeah.
so, like, I don't. Where do we draw the line between like, it's just fucking experiences you're perceiving, right?
Right,
Like, if it feels real after you have it, it's pretty fucking real.
right. I always thought about that. Like, all that really matters in life is anecdotes or oral history, I
Sure.
guess if you want to call it that. But if you want to break it down to anecdotes, like literally just stories you heard, someone's experience, an experience happened in front of you. You all perceived it a little differently or whatever. But like, it's literally your life is anecdotes. Now, if we're filled in certain first world countries or cultures, a lot of those are commercials and movies, and there's shared anecdotes. But
Sure.
everyone's got their own countless amount of anecdotes from just life that really shape. I don't know, or at least, yeah, like you said, it's just about the perceptions of experience.
Yeah.
Anecdote creates reality.
I think in certain ways, like whether we're trying to or not, we end up being here kind of sculpting our own personal anecdotal understanding of human experience. Right? Like we become a unique anecdote, our specific storyline and how we experienced it and what we saw of it and everything like that.
Yeah,
There's nobody else that's exactly the same as that. So yours ends up being like a unique story, even if it's a corroboration of a bunch of other stories.
yeah,
Or, I
totally.
mean,
One
when I
thing
say
about like,
stories, they could be true or fact or fiction. I mean, it makes no difference to me. So
all right. Well, and even every way you tell it is different. I mean, it's every person's going to tell the same story differently. That's why some people are
sure,
good comedians or storytellers, I guess, but are more captivating, I guess. And
definitely.
I think part of like being a storyteller is you have to be okay with. I mean, I met these people in my life, like to the extreme. There's one other person before I met Frank, but I'd say Frank is another one, right? And a storyteller to the extreme in the most awesome ways. His personality's prepped for being able to reshare experiences with the same excitement in new ways.
Hmm.
Like that's like a thing. because for me, like sometimes share like in the right context, I'll share other experiences in new ways when it fits or there's some kind of new flow to it. But to just tell a story to tell a story,
Yeah.
I just it's really hard for me to get
Sure.
momentum on that internally. And some people it's not, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean that storyteller gene is kind of a thing too. There are people who are more inclined towards it. Not, I think everybody can do it if they push themselves to, but some people it's more of a want from them to like take the time to put the color in the story and the emotion, and then some other people are just like, yeah, this is like what I learned from the story. Bing, bang, boom. Here's the function of it, bullet list style. You know what I mean? It's like the difference between like reading a novel and reading the Reader's Digest take on a novel. You know what I mean?
Right.
And some people are just like, they write novels, and really like novels are more engaging if you're looking for a story.
Yeah, totally. And like
So
it's interesting too because those storytellers. I mean, this is just any public speaker, presenter. I mean, this is kind of the understanding, or writing even. Who's your audience? Who are you engaging?
yeah,
And so even unconsciously or subconsciously, like I think with like Frank's a good example because he just does this. It's that even if it's the same story, like I've heard him tell the story, several stories on a show, or the story of him and I when we met or smoked DMT or whatever. I don't know, probably 6 or 8 times at least. And
Sure.
they're always new. They're always nuanced and different. There's always different layers or different things that were emphasized that like weren't even thought of. The last 3 times it came up, but these facets were really unique. So like, there's always stories within stories too.
Yeah.
So there is definitely an ability to always stay novel. It's just
I
guess,
especially do that with psychedelic experiences because it always like every psychedelic experience worth talking about in my life, like, and a lot of these were a long time ago. It's like telling the whole story is like, that's a really long story. Like, I mean, let's just I'm trying to tell this part, so you always like brush over shit and skip parts, and like in kind of like in honor of keeping context and relevance to the conversation that you're actually currently in, that is the reason for revisiting the story. And so it ends up being nuanced like that just because it's so fucking jam packed with like shit that happened that you noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. I feel like that's the whole reason why people have trouble like remembering DMT experiences, is because it's so fucking full with information that your mind's just kind of like, can't take it. Just kind of like throws out everything. Like you don't know how to pull like this from that when you get back here, because it was just like, wow, like so fast. And then you get here and you're like, what the fuck was all that? Like that was like 50,000 experiences and what, like how long has it been? 10 minutes? What the fuck? Okay, so like there was, okay, so it was like, fuck, okay.
Try to put it into some kind of cognitive framework that you can conceptualize.
So there was like
it all.
a being, but it wasn't like a being. It was like this.
Right.
So, and you're just like starting to try and like, how can I fucking explain what just happened? And because of that, it really feels like it's impossible to remember what happens. But like through telling the story a bunch of times, I feel like
Totally.
I've had times like years after a DMT trip where I've told the story and then I was like the OxyClean guy to myself. I was like, but wait, there's more. I remember this thing happened. You know what I mean? Like, fuck. After that, but before the thing I usually say in this story, there was this little part, And just like all of a sudden you remember that shit and have it like as part of the story then from then on if you want it, but you like don't have access to it. So I think trying to tell a story is really good. A lot of the stuff that like I use with clients is about actually like purposely telling a story or taking the time to really write it out, really be inside of it. I don't think like when we approach our past stories, when we're trying to move past them, I don't think we like approach them directly and fully enough. And so when we do that, the goal is like, we're going to dive into it this time. Then we're not diving into it anymore. Like we're done diving into it. Not like we're going to dive into it a little bit and then we'll be back next week. That's not what we're looking for. We're going to dive into it. We're going to get it fucking all out. You know what I mean? If you got to write a 34-page fucking, dissertation on this situation, like that's what you got to do. And then I need you to read it to me, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But like, I feel like we need to dive into these stories. Like if we're going to dive into the stories, like dive into the fucking story. Don't just like dip your toe in the water. Jump in the fucking deep end, drown in the water and see what it's like to be the pool. You know what I mean? Don't like Don't like, oh, tip your toe in. I don't know about this one. I gotta get out of here. Like
Yeah.
you gotta. Well, John Lilly, he was of this belief that like when you were gonna, especially when you're gonna do psychedelics in a float tank, you were like just kind of set your reality at the door and go into whatever experience you're experiencing or whatever story. You could say just this is a story, right? You're going into a
Yeah.
psychedelic story inside of a float tank here. So go into that story and literally just like accept everything that you see of it as true, then bring it back to the consensus reality and then incorporate it, integrate it with the other data, but do so in a way where you're making sure to incorporate all the data, not throw out the parts that don't fit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because really, well, the John Lilly perspective, and this is really more like the psychonauts angle on shit, is like you're trying to see the most shit, not get rid of shit that you saw. You're trying to like see more shit and
Yeah.
incorporate that into one big view that you have of all the shit you've seen. So,
Makes sense.
so when you're integrating it to the center, you don't throw anything out. You keep everything and you figure out like, okay, that seems opposite to that. How the fuck does that fit? And you got to come up with a story for that basically. And
Yeah.
if you can't come up with a story about it, that's some shit you don't know yet, right?
Right. Because you're
That's
always trying to bridge, like create paradigms of your own understanding. So the more you
right.
expand your understanding, whatever, but you're trying to bridge all the spheres if they're disconnected. Maybe it's some kind of like, I don't know if this is an every human being thing.
Hmm.
Probably just we just choose what to give our energy to and what we feel we're satisfied with for sure. But I'm talking about the innate urge to find unity amongst every experience or every conceivable thought you have. There's some
Sure.
kind of interconnection. Like that's the overdriving goal from being born, where nothing's connected, nothing makes sense, fingers, walls, like
Yeah.
space, whatever, to interconnecting spheres to be able to walk, and then that goes in the subconscious program, and then like this is how life works and culture, and like I don't know, just that drive. Maybe it's a humanity thing.
Yeah. I think potentially some people are in a space where they're looking to like see all of it and get it all in the same place, but we're definitely trying to learn more and like have a better understanding, get more control, be more aware. Like everybody's buying into some kind of format that really is this function, I think. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Like it's one of the greatest things about the human experience. It's all like novel and shit and there's stuff you haven't seen yet and you can see more of it. Like that's what everybody really wants to do. Whether you want to like travel or find your true love. If you're saying you want to find your true love, that's kind of insinuating you haven't done that yet, right? So like
Yeah.
you're looking for a novel experience. You want to travel, you're looking to go novel places. You know, you want to
Yeah.
whatever you really want to do. You're basically just trying to like reach out into the sphere and like be the center thing that has seen more of that. And
Yeah.
there's really not any getting away from it. It doesn't seem like. That's just what
Well,
the
it's like
human experience is. That's why it's all a
well, it's like
projection. Like that's what you're doing. You're projecting yourself out there into new shit.
And I guess I wonder if this is where some people get frustrated at a subconscious or unconscious level in their older age, where they have a very simple, confined life. And not saying that's bad or wrong at all. I'm just thinking about the way some people's trajectory seems to go, and that's fine. Some people like really enjoy it. That's where they're at peace. Other ones like feeling like they didn't actually follow that desire, that innate intuition, the rest of the whole life, and now they're in this confined space where they can't travel and they can't do all the things they want to do or things that they should, if you will, if they were following that impulse or their heart or whatever
Sure.
that they would have maybe.
Yeah, I think we definitely get ourselves into situations where we feel that the identities that we have taken on have requirements that restrict us from doing things that other identities of ourself would like to do, you know? And I think people get really caught up in, well, it's generally the situation of one of those they don't want to do, but it's the thing they need to do, and the other one they want to do, but they can't because they got this other thing that they need to do that they don't want to do. That, my friends, is a motherfucking trap. Like, if you're telling yourself that you're doing that and everything's going to be okay, good luck. Like it's probably not going to be okay. The statistics seem to show that there's a low chance that you will continue down that path and in 10 years you'll be in a place where you're like, I am very happy with my decisions over the last decade. Like you're probably not going to say that in 10 years. So, like we need to pay attention to this shit. Like it's hard to overcome those things. That is like the societal conditioning, right? Like I need to do X because basically society, my morals, my upbringing, my conditioning, my environment, something says that I have to do that, but a lot of these are not actually, they're rules, they're not laws, right? Like with the differentiation being a law cannot be broken, it doesn't need to be enforced, it's impossible to do it opposite, okay? So, and then a rule being more like a suggestion, right? Speed limit 50 miles an hour, yeah, but like 5 over, it probably won't pull you over, like, yeah, if there's not a cop, it doesn't really matter. It ain't legal if you don't get caught. You know, like these kinds of things like that. These are rules, right? Like they're not enforced. They are enforceable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And laws are enforced. Like they just fucking exist. You know? Like if I'm a human, I'm a human. Like the things about being a human that are required for humanness. If I'm having human experience, like I have those things, and there's no getting around them, right? Like, so, those are laws. Like I can't break them, no matter how much I want to. I cannot break them. That's a law.
So I mean, it's the same. So this is semantics. If they were in the same paradigm, I think it's the differentiation George Kavaslis and other people make between law and lore. Natural lore being the laws, if your way you're referring to them, and then law being the laws by man or laws things that are different. That's different than the things that govern the universe. That's lore. Have you ever heard that before?
So the ones that are like the unbreakable ones, meaning that they cannot be broken, is the lore in that format?
Yeah, right.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that format, and the way that like I personally use lore in my own life, which is just like the backstory to something. I come very much so with that word from like an RPG fantasy story kind of way. You know what I mean? So to me, the lore is like the backstory. So like, it's a story. I mean, I guess that stuff's supposed to be like the canon and the truth. But I mean, I understand if we know that like the laws are the things that are made up. Basically, they are enforceable, and that the lore are the things that are enforced. Then, I mean, I get it. It seems like the same thing, you know, but it gets muddled very much so with those two, because I'm saying like the law is the opposite one, but it's just, this is fucking linguistics, dude. Like we got to stay inside of one story. Otherwise we're like, wait a minute, these stories are contradictory, but they're not. They're talking about gauge symmetries, and they're like dealing with like opposing systems, and the gauge symmetry can really go to like either side. You know, I could say that rules can absolutely not be broken and make some claim for that it's like, well, it's the measurement of reality, and that's why we call them rules, because they're like ruled out, and it's like the grid, and it's very structured, and you can't get around it. And then the laws are things that men establish, you know, and then just flip the whole system. But really, nevertheless, we're talking about the same damn thing. Right?
Yeah.
That like we have two things that we kind of act as though they preside over us. One of them actually presides over us, and the other one we subscribe to its precedence, basically.
Yeah.
For whatever our reason is. And whatever our reason is good fuck enough, because it doesn't matter whether anybody else thinks it's good enough. It's because it's just a determiner of whether or not we decide it presides. So if we do, we do.
Yeah.
That's what's really interesting about like, through all my time with psychology, about like we could call them excuses, we could call them reasons, we could call them justifications, stories, we could call them all kinds of different things. But inside of this, it's very interesting to watch the things that some people will claim like commands their activity. Because sometimes it's like, it's just, most people would not think that commands your activity, but to them it is very much so a truth. And if you try to like approach their situation as though like, no, you're wrong, that doesn't command your activity, you're incapable of helping this person in any way. You know what I mean? Because they're just like, well, I mean, actually it does. And you're like, no, it doesn't. Just stop. And they're like, but it commands my activity. And you're like, nah, no, it doesn't. That's not how it really is. Like, that doesn't do you any good. You have to just be like, okay, so that's the commanding like force. How do we work with it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. It's so interesting to see it. I mean, like, especially in myself, man. Like, I do some super like, like I think I'm intelligent, but I'm not actually very psyched about that in a lot of ways, because like in many ways that means that I do like very, very clever things to trick myself. I'm also equipped with the intelligence to catch myself doing that shit. But the net result is basically a wash, right? Like if you're stupid, it's a blessing and a curse. If you're incredibly smart, it's a blessing and a curse. And it actually ends up being a wash regardless, because like smart people are so good at sabotaging themselves with like these stories and logical justifications that are just many, many layers deep, supported by oath or affirmation or sometimes scientific doctrine and like all this shit. And it's got like this crazy spin on it, right? And it's like, it sounds legit. Sounds like a great case, but it's not. Like, they're still just doing this thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
yes, I totally, yeah.
it's like, and as I love and hate watching myself do that to myself. It's hilarious when I catch it, but at the same time, I'm like, damn, I did that to myself.
Right.
Fuck. That sucks.
And then there's all that energy into a cycle that didn't have really forward progression, except now you caught it. That's great, but
that is the forward progression right there.
True.
You know what I mean? And that's where you
Yeah,
got to go like, oh, that sucked, but we're out of there now, boys. Like we're looking back at the prison. You know what I mean?
But except also just because you realize you're in a prison doesn't mean you're actually out of it yet. Now you just realize here are the components, and I'm aware.
Yeah.
Now I'm aware. I'm working on that along with a million other things. I spend a lot of time on that. Either way, I'm aware. But there's not trying to get outside the prison on that.
I think you can make it fun to catch yourself if you. I think it's very important that people do not take life too seriously, and trust me, I know that's fucking hard to do in some situations.
Okay. Listen, I got a
but
story.
I think it's very important.
Dive into the anecdote. So, I was having around the fire with my brother a couple months ago. Went out to an Airbnb and my siblings and stuff, and we were talking about a conversation that we had a couple months prior, something, I don't know, when we were at my parents' place, and this is shortly before my dad passed away, and him and I can just get into it sometimes. Like there's a lot of things we talk about I don't think he necessarily agrees with, certain dynamics or esoteric dynamics or conspiracy theory, certain things, but there's a lot of things he does, like he gets, but we get like really get under each other's skin. We can really do that really easy. He's like one of the only people in the entire world that like, I can't believe I'm this frustrated already. And I really am, and like, and so we kind of got into it a little bit, and my stepmom was there kind of moderating, which she's cool. I know it wasn't out of control. So especially she's there monitoring, she can handle shit. She's kind of moms this shit all the time in her life and like whatever.
Yeah.
And so, I knew once I got under his skin, like that's it, I won in this dynamic. And what I realized, we talked about that at the fire after the fact, like bring that back up, because we both were thinking about it again and analyzed it and whatever. And I realized as we're talking it through that in that moment, I totally consciously, I totally chose to slip into that like jester role. Like, I fucking got you, and like, just, I remember I chose it, man. I felt it. It was fun. I was thinking like, maybe this will be the one time my brother fucking punches me and we'll get in a fist fight. Awesome. And like, awesome. So I'm like, I'm chiding him, man. And I got him. I know that I fucking got him. And he knows that when I settle into this spot, it enrages him even more. Right. Because now you cannot offend me. Now I got you. Right. There's nothing. My anger is gone. It's all here in this hook. And so see how far that like we can drive this to see how this can escalate, like just by choice, like that fun roll, just to see what kind of chaos can happen, right?
Yeah.
But it was because like on different levels, like even we were joking about that. We've talked in life, thinking and knowing at some point we're gonna fucking throw blows at each other, and great, like we've already prepared for that, and we know these moments, and we kind of want to just to see we're brothers, right? Just have those moments, whatever. So we know it'll probably come. We've talked about before, and like him, he was really grateful that I acknowledged that. Just in that observation of myself in that dynamic, and being able to joke with him and apologize now or just whatever with him, like in that dynamic, that's where I was at. And obviously we're cool on higher levels. And actually that was the night we really kind of talked about, like really appreciating who each of us were as people and really getting along in a lot of ways we do. But there's certain subjects that we just have really fundamental disagreements on at this point in life, although we're both always open and learning. And so like really just accepting that's how he is, that's how I am, that's okay. We really do enjoy each other here, and we kind of know where the tension points are, so like we found a new level of balance of being like adults and brothers, and really
Yeah.
enjoying ourselves most of the time. You know.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I think it's like, in a certain way, I think especially with brothers, like, you kind of need to fight. You
Yeah,
don't
no
have to
doubt.
like put each other in the hospital or anything, but like, you
Yeah,
kind of need to fight. Maybe just like wrestle and shit, and that can handle it. I don't know. I had a lot, like, I didn't have I didn't have siblings, period. So like, I can't speak from that, but I had like a lot of really close guy friends. We definitely like roughhoused harder than most people
yep,
do. We boxed a lot, like fight
cool.
clubs, shit like this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so, and I think it was great for our camaraderie, honestly. It was
yeah,
wonderful. All of the, no, no problem that came out of that actually persisted for any long period of time. Like, maybe somebody would feel that somebody else was cheap or whatever, and they'd be mad for like a week or 2 weeks, and then they'd fucking get over it. You know what I mean?
yeah. Or fight it
And
out
yeah, I mean, yeah.
or whatever, man.
Usually,
Just like
usually when they
there's an
felt that the
openness
other
to it.
person was cheap, actually what happened was they got their ass beat and they knew that. So
Yeah,
that's a lot of time that's the case, and there's
yeah,
a fucking life lesson inside of that. More often than not, when you say that you got screwed over in the situation, you're actually just mad that you fucking didn't come out in the way that you wanted to. You didn't win. You lost. You're mad you lost, and you're trying to make up fucking reasons why you lost. When it's like there's two different ways of coming about this. If you're saying that it's like, well, that was cheap. I got screwed over. I got the short end of the stick. I didn't have the opportunity. Then there's really not a lot of progression to be had from that. But if you like recognize why you lost, why didn't I come out on top, right? Like, what was it that led to that? Then you have all
yeah,
kinds of progression points to work off of. And really, like, as long as you're utilizing those, in a very short while, you will be ahead of the curve. Honestly, like most people don't really progress themselves at all. So, if
yeah.
it don't take very long to get ahead of the curve, really, which is unfortunate. You know, a moment of silence for the curve.
Tailors.
Anyways, so the curve seems to be shifting, which is good. I think it's always been shifting, but I think it's shifting into we'll call it a different form, a
Yeah.
different, I don't know what to call it.
What would it look like?
Ah, well, it's like if you were to just look at it as a line graph, the parabola is changing.
Mm,
The shape of the arc is
yeah.
change. It seems different now than it did before. It used to be like, I don't know, I guess it used to be very much so like a lot more of kind of like a slanted arc, right? So there was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, because this you would actually say that it starts at like a whatever relatively high already level, but the disparity was a very small shred of people, and like the difference between them and the standard individual was a dramatic difference, like a
Yeah.
very dramatic difference. And now it's like it's kind of just like flattened out more. There's kind of more stuff that fills in the space between like the dramatic difference, which is still kind of at the same spot. Maybe it's moved a little bit higher in the time that I've seen. I don't really know what that means, but maybe it has in like the metrics I would put on it.
Yeah.
But the average has kind of brought itself up. So it's really more like I can't ever remember how this camera works. But nevertheless, it's basically operating, more like that now instead of being like this big swoop-de-doop. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So, and I it seems better, you know what I mean? Like the average Joe is more aware, right? And I don't like judge this by
Yeah.
like what conspiracy theories do they believe in? How open are their shock? Nothing. Like I would base it more off of like how they watch their personal space, how they make their decisions. I'm looking at their level of awareness, not like what story they buy into at what dimensionality and how much work have they put in. I don't care about any of that really. I care about like how much do they understand their space and how much data are they gathering from it that they're able to actually utilize as part of their decision making process at any given moment through their life. That's what I would assess that based off of. And so it seems like the average is higher. Like the standard person is more aware, simply
Yeah.
put. So, and I think that's great. Like, I don't honestly think like the top end of this framework that I'm talking about, like, it's really going to change very much. Like, I don't think really at that kind of like the top end level of thinking, I don't think there's a lot of places to go. When I say top end level of thinking, I just mean like the most advanced concepts that you can find in any various school. You go way deep into a religion, you go way deep into some type of esoteric modality, you go way deep into science some way. You find ways where it's like, I mean, fucking beyond this, we're not really in the same experience anymore, are we? I mean, you think about
Right.
like the idea of phase conjugate optics, and like the going a step deeper into that is to understand what happens at the 0 point where phase conjugation is in perfect coherence. And like seemingly the easiest way to understand that at this point in time is like imagine a complete and other reality in there, but in there actually takes up no space here. Like here it's actually like the breach between non-space and space, but in that little breach is there's a whole nother reality, right?
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's not true, but that's like our closest conceptualization to it at this point in time. And at the end of the day, like I also with like, well, spirituality and stuff, I think you get to points where I mean, what more questions are you really gonna ask? Someone did me a huge favor a long time ago when I thought I like had things figured out at one point in time, and I launched into telling them this big old story, riding around on my high horse, parading around, showing them all the works of art that tell you exactly what was happening. And when I got done telling it, and I was just like ready for them to give their standing ovation, they just went, "So what happens after that?" And I was like, fuck, there's probably something after that. Shit. Like, if they can imagine something after that, and that's just like their natural question, there's got to be
Yeah.
more. So, like, what was I doing? And oh my gosh, like, I was, to my own personal opinion of my journey and understanding of reality, I was not even close when I postulated this whole thing right there. Like, that was, he was this person who was not like someone who was like all knowing or anything like that. They were just curious, and asking questions. Really, we were talking mostly about
Yeah.
psychedelics, and they kind of came from like a Hindu background, and they were like, "Where do you think this leads us spiritually? Like, is there crossovers and shit?" And I was like, "You're talking to the right guy. Like, I got crossovers all day, Hinduism and psychedelics all day long. Let's go." So, nevertheless. But it really did me like a huge favor because I really started questioning, like, wait, okay, so like, what's after that? And it's just kind of like a thing that I do now. No matter where I get with something, I'm just like, so what's after that? Like,
Right.
you know. But I think there is a point where you're like, when you start going, what's after that? You start also needing to ask the question, like, if I go after this, does it have any relevance to my actual existence? Like, to my consensus reality, me as a human? Is there any
Yeah.
relevance beyond here? And then, like, if there is no relevance, is that what you should spend your human life on? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Let's define
decision for you
relevance,
to
I guess,
make. But
subjectively.
for me personally, I have, like, no. Everything I've ever done down the lines of consciousness or anything is for me to have, I guess you'd say, a better understanding, or we would use a lot of
To
different
learn.
words for a lot of different times. But to have that here in my consensus reality as being Zach, so if it loses relevance to that reality, I mean, I guess me personally, I start to question the value of that kind of exploration. I
Hmm.
think like, I mean, maybe there is, and I don't think one's right just for my own path. Like, if I can't get something beneficial here, could I spend my time somewhere where I could? You know, compare now
Yeah.
to 1969. I kind of can't do that because I was born in 1983. I've like spent a lot of time reading about it and stuff like that, but like no real replacement for direct experience. It seems like it seems broader now. It seems really broad right
Yeah,
now.
because of mass media since then that began since the 70s. There's an extra dynamic with that, like on the comment of difference between 69 and 2020, or just 50 years, right? So let's see, what be, yeah, 50, give or take.
In 51
So
years.
Jubilee, Frank and I are actually talking about this on the phone before the show. and we're talking about the year of Jubilee. And he brought this up through a bunch of a new level and layers of esoteric shit that he's found out through some research stuff and experiences, and he's had recent eye experiences. He'll be talking about on his show tomorrow night, Frankie Fearless, which is at 6 p.m. Pacific, and it plays right before our show. And then wait, I'm saying that right? Yeah, Saturday night. I'm trying to make sure the day of the week right.
Yep.
So
tomorrow night, 6
more.
p.m. Pacific on his channel, and then we're right after it.
Yeah, and then that's 9 p.m. Eastern, and so. But I studied that all through the Hebrew texts and everything. I was understanding too, like if Yahweh was going to come back, if Christ was going to return, if Project Bluebeam or whatever, any of those dynamics were going to happen, that it was going to be 2017, I believe, or 2018. That based on the stars and astrological shit and other shit, like there was one, like a portal there in 2017. There's one last one in 2018 based on all the text and all the code and all the morphogenic energy behind those to create that into a 3D reality based on the code that they put there, and they missed it, right? Both of them. It was awesome. And but it was interesting that shifted, because right after that, there's a lot of things talking about the year of Jubilee. People starting that, thinking that down in 2014 all the way through, but really that 50-year period where everything resets back to original lore or original law or original ways, and like resets back to natural order or that coherent everything. Yeah. And so
I mean, if I was a time traveler, I'd love to go to 1969 and see like how conscious were people then? Like, what did consciousness mean then? I think maybe it's possible that consciousness even kind of means two different things in the two different spaces, but I can't really say, because all I really know about 1969 is what I've been sold by pop culture and various anecdotal things.
Yeah, anecdotes, right? We're layered by anecdotes.
I don't really know.
RGB said, cool, like what you guys are doing. Hope you keep it going. Appreciate that. So it's nice to have encouragement, because we're just on here chatting. So it's nice to people enjoy
Yeah, thanks for stopping by and asking questions and stuff. I wish I could compare 1969 to now in a certain way.
Okay.
I also don't want to actually, like, I'm glad I'm positioned exactly as I am, like age-wise, life experience-wise, everything. I wouldn't have wanted to be, like, even more than, like, 3 years older or younger than I was throughout my entire life. Like, I feel like I was like the perfect age at the perfect time for the things that I did. And why I wouldn't have wanted to deviate my age or my timing at all. Like, it was perfect. Yeah. Good timing. Yeah.
Well, like I've seen like other layers to that. I'm just thinking about it. If it is waves, the Mayan ninth wave, 11th, Mayan ninth waves calendars, which a lot of that resonates and correlates with my astrology and my birth date being the month that the pre-ninth wave or something started the month before I was born, which brings more consciousness to the planet. Even the map of it says where after that date that more people, I guess, epigenetically are born with their left and right brains connected instead of just being left-brained for the last however many years that was for the previous wave. Like it usually decades or hundreds since the Renaissance maybe or something or whatever. And so and I think it correlates with the yugas and all that kind of stuff. So that all being true, and if there's some kind of conscious choice coming in here, which a lot of people's experiences, I've had my own intuitive experiences and all sorts of different thoughts and experiences, and I'm open enough to this being a reality that seems true, even like the womb experiences, different dynamics. Anyway, choosing to come in certain timelines, certain specific incarnations with it for a choice of set of experiences. Like on some conscious level, we're creating our Sims character and we're popping them into whatever place we're going to pop them in time, or what kind of character or whatever, right? For whatever that experience is. Like that makes sense to me, being a fractal of a more whole experience that on some level is all connected, but all these levels in between, like you've got millions of years or millions of lifetimes of experiences that are all correlating into one Zach or one Aaron. Like as we are gaining information from this reality all the time, and it's more kind of morphing us just in our own experience. That higher level that has millions of lifetimes, that's a fractal down from something already, but that in and of itself, like, so if we're on that lower fractal, if you will, that's the ascension on some level, I think it's all culminating us or whatever, but like you return to more of, or that more turns more into this awareness, this fractal starts to integrate with that bigger fractal, more of those awarenesses, like wanting to be a pirate in your whole life, or like certain things, like past lifetime shit, or like more than that. I feel that's more than that, but
yeah, which is like just in a certain way, the pirate thing is like integration of a longer cycle or broader cycle that I know of too, which is just like kind of that revolutionary rule breaker, do what you want kind of person, You know what I mean? And like pirates are that, and so were like 80 other things that I've been like, that's so awesome. You know?
Yeah, no doubt. He said, Sister Brittany said, difference is that more people were on acid in 1969 thanks to the further bus and merry pranksters.
That might be the case. I know one thing that is for sure: less
That's kind of
people were on
covered
pharmaceutical medications, and I'm a really not a big fan of pharmaceutical medications.
Yeah, no doubt. I
But I
mean, just
gotta say,
I mean,
there's
that difference
like
between those
there's
decades.
still, like there's still a lot of people eating acid. I mean, I don't know how many were eating it in 1969, but I know
I
there's still
do.
a lot of them eating
Okay,
it now.
what I felt like with that from my own anecdotal experiences and stories and history I've taken in or whatever and all pop culture and shit. Um, it seems that because of the propaganda, just like with weed and whatever, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs, and like especially with mushrooms, it's the opposite. You know, your brain
Yeah.
is more connected and all that shit. So the propaganda literally is propaganda. It was lies. You can say lack of science, sure. Let's just pretend it was all ignorant lack of science.
Does
Fine.
anybody at this point in time like really actually feel like the brain on drugs thing, egg frying? Like no one really actually resonates with that and thinks that's like
They
a real
do.
thing, do
They
they?
do. They do. Okay, my parents. Okay, my parents, and that made that age group. But that's what I'm saying. The ones who
Okay.
were born in the
All
'60s,
right.
they grew up in like a
Yeah,
teenage
they
years
were
where we're
like
getting the
already old
propaganda.
dog new tricks kind of space when those
Well,
things
but
came
that's
around. I
okay.
get
But
it.
think about that. So when the propaganda comes around, they kind of grew up with the propaganda. What I've seen, like you see
Yeah.
in some of the ARP shows, that a lot of like adults were doing it, like adult parties, and like it was positive experiences. I didn't know that except for a pretty good pop culture piece that kind of showed that aspect. I'm like, huh. And I saw other things of like adults, like other old videos and shit, and
Yeah.
like them doing together and their experiences, which is totally not what you see when they show them in a psych ward or in a clinical setting, sound clipped, and she's experiencing weird stuff, and the context and all the propaganda shit around it just creates this very scary bad thing. And
Yeah.
it's not saying it's ever bad, but like the point is like not understanding the full spectrum of it, where the culture, it seems,
I hear
never
that,
does.
but then also at the same time, like people propagandized and like basically people on the street, majority of them think like heroin is fucking terrible for you, and more and more people doing heroin all the fucking time. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like, what's the fear around a psychedelic as opposed to like that kind of opiate or something? Because plenty of people
Yeah.
seeking out these fucking
Well,
opiates. That's just like these psychedelics, dude. There's not a shortage of people seeking out psychedelics that by any stretch of the imagination. You know, like
yeah.
when whatever 1990s 2000s shit like that. There's fucking a
Yeah.
lot more people than there was then. Like you'd talk to people about various psychedelics or whatever, and you'd have to like give them a fucking course on what that thing even was. You know, they knew like nothing about it. And now like you can have conversations with people where they've fucking, they've been considering and researching ayahuasca for the last 3 years, but they haven't had the chance to do it yet. And they're not really sure whether they're going to. And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah, no doubt.
you know about
Well,
all this
totally.
shit already? Like, I don't know.
Wait,
I feel
okay,
it's
so
way out
but
there.
I think for sure. I think we're finally at that place in the last like 3, 4, 5 years, because now people are saying that 3 years, 4 years. I don't think they would have said that 5 years ago, but like whatever, we're here now. That's pretty fucking cool that we're that
Yeah, 5 years
interconnected.
ago was where it kind of, I feel like it started breaching out some.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's where people have now done years of research because they won't talk about it maybe, but they're looking into it. They're keeping their ears open. They're watching videos. They're doing their own research. They're allowing it. They're allowing that to call to them. They don't tell
Yeah.
nobody. Whatever. They're just looking and tuning into it. And
Yeah.
then, yeah. And so that now, like, so the interesting in the '60s in a similar way, I think that could have happened just person to person. I think that the experiences were so positive. People were getting so maybe just healed from traumas because they get to feel good for a while in a way they never have, and like have some cool experience and like great, like Kevin talked about chasing dragons on the golf course, right, with the
Yeah.
poles and the spears and just whatever, man. Like that somehow the government took that, they said it was this awful thing, and they locked it all down and made it just like with weed, the stuff that seems to expand your consciousness or to give you additional layers of perception, let's put it that way. That's
Yeah.
just it's a bummer, man. So if that wasn't hindered and cracked down in that way, that could have, maybe that reality would have been here way before now.
Yeah. I think we have so many dynamics in reality now that probably affect the way that we really have that experience, whether it be a shallower dose or a deeper dose, just because we have like so many other weird things on our mind. Like the whole concept of like the rise of social media and devices that you can like use. It's a fucking computer in your pocket. right? And you're like, you have a
Yeah.
fucking relationship with it and shit, and it's like always around with you, and all kinds of weird stuff like this. The ability to learn through that, but still keep like the whole concept like at a distance at the same time. I think there's so many differences now to 1969. Like people were probably
Totally.
more apt to have a conversation with somebody else in 1969 because they couldn't pull out their phone and just message their fucking person they're already friends with.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know
no
what I mean?
doubt. They're already connected in that way, in a very personal way. Like learned how to be in-person people, and then you share an anecdotal story. Hey, this LSD thing or whatever, it starts spreading. It's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't
I
like I don't know.
This is this person says here too, like, but today's psychedelics are lots of microdosing and
Yeah, I was
entheotourism,
gonna ask about that.
ayahuasca, small doses, not to deep dive. Like, there's definitely a lot of that for sure, but like, were people like really always macro dosing or whatever you want to call that in like the late 1960s? Because I mean, it's from anecdotal stories that I have heard. Having said that, like my LSD experience is not typical, but a lot of times when they're talking about like their dosing, I'm like, that sounds pretty diddler. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
kind of microdosing and stuff. They're like, oh, but it was really really pure. I'm like, mine too. Like I don't know what
Right.
to tell you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's not like I
Yeah.
get shitty LSD or something. Quite the
Yeah.
opposite. You know. So
Yeah.
it's just like I don't know. Were they always like going deep on it? Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that was the case. You know, I
Yeah.
know I definitely had the best LSD culture that I ever had around me. It was a place. It was a place in time where the standard members of that group, I would say like probably like the standard we're actually doing this dose was like 1,000 micrograms. Like when that was kind of like the standard inside of the group, then there was like it was a really good psychedelic space. Like people were getting like really high all the time, but they were really like it was really like a little like incubator for learning about psychedelics and learning about ourselves and really just like kind of through
Huh.
a really just like fun non-purposeful modality really just like coming into our own and fucking really just offsetting a lot of the like shitty lives that all of us had like we were, for lack of a better word, like a bunch of white trash kids, you know, and a couple of us were like Mexicans or Native Americans or whatever, but for all intents and purposes we lived in an area where we were functioning like a bunch of white trash. We were treated that way basically by, you know, the police and by the local society, but through like, you know, LSD and these other kinds of things, we really offset a lot of the like, you know, the problems of a broken home, the, you know, alcoholic parents, abusive society, getting all wrapped up with the law at young ages, all these various different kinds of things, plus the normal standard things that a kid goes through just getting older, right? But we were like kind of I think that there's a slightly different one when you have well, all of this is kind of like disenfranchised youth, right? Like it doesn't matter whether you come from like the black hood or the brown hood or the white hood. It doesn't really matter. There's things that like happen in the hood that are effects on to a person's psychology that are different from what happens in the suburbs for sure. That's like I can definitely speak to that because my adult life has mostly been spent in the suburbs, and my childhood was spent in the hood. And the suburbs is not like the hood. It's not like the hood at all. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
like really the LSD use as a group and you know some other psychedelics in there too. I think it really helped us like bond and find like a familial camaraderie that we otherwise really would not have had and let a lot of this stuff come forward, but it really was the byproduct of like I mean like we were doing a lot of like wanting to be cooler than the next guy, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
people were like pushing themselves to dose a little bit more and stuff. Uh,
I like the terminology. The RBG. You reading the RBG comment? But that's not psychedelic. It's sipping tea poolside, fun, but not reality probing or life changing. And I know, okay, I want to dive into some of that because there's a lot of aspects there. But
sure.
like,
And we're talking. When he's saying that, it's a follow up to a comment that says even until 2000, people did pretty serious doses. When internet popularized things, it went shallow. But I also agree that it's all a mix, and low doses can be great. I guess I could see that. Like, I mean, maybe I'm like, I might be setting my cutoff date from a lot from like my childhood, and basically then by 2000, the people that I associated with psychedelically, they didn't operate like standard people psychedelically, and so that didn't have effect right there. But I have seen from watching the internet that definitely like a lot more of the lower end trying to get the I've done psychedelics award user has definitely popped up, like a lot, a whole lot. I think it's kind of good.
Yeah.
I think they walk into a rabbit hole that they're inevitably going to walk down. Like it's you can't just like it
Right.
starts sliding, right? So
I just
nevertheless, what
well,
he's saying is that
yeah.
low doses, he or she, I'm not really sure, that low doses can be great, but the low doses are not really psychedelic. They're like sipping tea
Yeah.
poolside. They're fun, but they're not really reality probing or life changing. And I'm going to toss it to you in a second because I want to hear what you have to say on this. But I think in smaller ways, the microdosing does have the ability, if done as like a functional thing, to be it can create a change in the life. But it's definitely ain't fucking reality probing like a large dose is. No doubt about that. What do you think, Aaron?
Right as I chew some gum, wet my mouth a little bit. Okay. Yeah, now that I mean, put in context, I didn't read the first one, so I was re-going through that as you were explaining. I'm like, yeah, Zach's explaining, yeah, that part, right? Of course. Okay. Yep. Uh-huh. Yeah, that. Okay, but also then trying to find other layers on this dynamic. It's not psychedelic. Have we ever broken down that word? Can we maybe do that real quick? Actually, look the
I
etymology
break it
of that
down
word.
like every time that we talk about it. I mean, it's to make the mind present.
Okay, so
Psyche,
we say
mind,
that. Yeah.
delia, to present.
Okay, so I would say microdosing probably does on a micro level for a lot of people, but not necessarily like a psych. I think the reference here though is the ones that you're like. I'm trying to how you describe it. You're definitely not going anywhere. Maybe there's a good time if you have a trip sitter. I don't know, like really, like you're gone, whatever that means. Some kind of extreme experience that's beyond just like a micro. You can still function your normal day. Your default mode network's still going. Something maybe beyond that. Maybe we define it that way. Something goes beyond the default mode network, being a true psychedelic experience or something, or a big psychedelic experience.
I mean, we can define it anywhere that we want to.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
I'm just trying to think. I guess a running definition for my own framework. I guess.
I mean, well, I just talk about it at different scales personally, because
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, if we're to stay strict to the linguistics that are there, then it's it's a pretty broad concept. Your life
Oh.
is psychedelic. You know what I mean?
How does default mode network being bypassed or whatever coherent with
I think
being
that's
present?
definitely a worthwhile like breaking point or a definitive line to take note of. There's no doubt about that.
I'll take
Because
note of. Let's go and say it.
I mean, default mode network, and that's what we're trying to do when we're trying to identify it with like some word, right? We're trying to say like, where's the line of separation that says like, this is the thing, and then there's a line, and then it's not the thing, you know? So, RGB says beyond default mode network works, plus yielding quote unquote you being in control. And I assume when you say you, you're talking of like a higher self, true self you. Is that what you mean when you're saying
Or like, well,
plus
letting.
yield?
I think.
Oh, yielding.
Yeah.
So the stopping of the you,
Yeah,
the
the you.
identity being in control. Yeah, I think you need that. Like, here's where I think psychedelic space really happens. It's at like this hard ego death space where you're still perceiving, but you are not identified while perceiving. Everything before that might as well be considered a microdose. They're very different states. You do not have the same type of like revelatory reality probing experience before the concept of your you-ness gets destroyed. When that fades away and there's just like an experience happening and you're in it. But what are you? Who knows? No identity. You're just in it. This is a completely fucking different psychedelic space. It's like instead of seeing your mind, you're literally like swimming inside your fucking mind. You know what I mean? Like you didn't project the mind out now and then look at it, but rather you fell into your mind and you're having a look at it. You know? And these are two vastly different spaces. And I say that's really where the default mode network has been cut off. you, Zach. Zach has to be
Yeah.
a fucking thought I don't remember,
Yeah, there
basically.
you go.
You
Yeah,
know
well,
what I
good
mean?
said. Well said. Yeah.
Where like I could make up a Zach or the idea of like, what if I was a thing inside of this space? But like, there's no fucking way that I would purposely project this thing because I don't even
Yeah.
remember this thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm in this place and I've always fucking been here and this is my thing. This is what I do and I don't know what that is yet and I'm trying to figure it out. And like I don't
Yeah.
know what I am or if I am. I'm just here trying to figure out what the fuck is going on or just observing what is going on. But yeah, like I'm with that totally. Like that's a line that like that's the hard ego death that like people who are on the side have not ever experienced that and people who are on the side of have experienced that. They're different people. They are functionally different people. I don't necessarily think it's always in good ways. But I think they are functionally different people. Cuz it's like it's really well, it's very life-changing to come back into Zach after having a very full volume experience that maybe felt like it went on for a really long time, where Zach was not. And then all of a sudden, a chain of events led to wait a minute, I'm sober. Wait, that was drugs? What the fuck? How long was that? You know what I mean? And you're just like, you're back here, but you're like, wait, I thought like literally just like a chain of events of that reality led to me being here, but I realized this is not fucking what I was just doing. So like this is a completely different fucking line of existence. And I don't know what that other existence is, but it ain't the fucking same as this. That's for sure. So that for me, that's real psychedelic space. And everything before that is a microdose. There's just like some really big micro doses. I think actually we can get to that space much easier if we like through management than through upping dose. Like if we're really willing to go to that space, if we have been in that space before, you talk about the feeling something you felt before. I don't know if you can't feel something you felt before, but I know it's definitely easier to. There's no doubt about that. You will never get any argument from me on that. And
Yeah,
so
makes
I
sense.
think it's easier to get to this space if you have some tools. A lot of them are the same things that like Monroe focus techniques help me a shitload. That's why I teach them to other people, both for psychedelic progression and also just for standard life. Well, your life is psychedelics, really. So, nevertheless, meditation things, breathing exercises, just already having the mind in a set where it's ready to like, I've already given up, ladies and gentlemen. Like, whatever happens for the next 12 hours of my life, I do not care. See you maybe never. Right? Like, and you're really
Yeah.
just all in on that. You don't give a fuck what happens. You're checking out. And like having these kinds of things can allow people to get there on much lower doses. So it's weird when we start like
Yeah.
associating experience to dose. Because
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
seen people get like out their body losing their shit because they believe they're being like consumed by some kind of animal or entity or whatever from literally taking like a little tiny snifter of ayahuasca. Like they were not even trying to get high. They were purposely trying to just partake in the ceremony and they were taking this like taste. And this was like, I don't know, maybe an eyedropper. I don't even know. Not enough to get you high. Like you shouldn't get high off of this. But like if this was all an act, I don't understand why.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So like I'm pretty sure it
physiologically-
wasn't. You know?
I wonder if physiologically, psychologically too, that with the amount of ayahuasca that you have, so that's the reason there are doses. They do them the reasons they do have for thousands of years to some degree. I mean, I don't know how super accurate it is. Probably, and obviously, different brews or different things, different strengths based on reduction and different techniques and etc.
Definitely not a science with ayahuasca.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially
So-
in the jungle.
I think like
Sticks,
usually the
leaves, sticks, leaves, water, boil. Okay, and again.
Yeah. Okay. So like usually it seems like there's usually 2 ounce-ish or a sip or a good solid whatever. I don't know. It seems like there's more. At least I know Frank ceremonies where there's two glasses, 2 cups that he has set up. I think maybe each 2 ounces or more or whatever, and really reduced and whatever. And the first one is if you do puke, that you have another one to go back in over that. So that the thing about the things that do come up, the experiences he's had, the different things I looked into, parasitology, there's a lot of things that this thing can physiologically do. So if you have just a sip, it's enough to trigger in your nervous system that there's a poison to the parasites in the body. They freak out in your nervous
Sure.
system, in your
I
gut.
could do that.
You freak out. You think it's a bug or whatever. It probably is on a microscopic level, or maybe
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
connected to some external entity also. Like there's a resonance there. Like I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
layers there. I think are really interesting.
Yeah. I've never been able to figure it out. That's a good angle on it. I think it's in the long run when I feel like I'm in this position with some, I feel like we got a nice combo going. It's like there's a cocktail, right?
Yeah,
It
right.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
whether it was the vodka, the whiskey, or the whatever else. Like when you put them all together, that happened.
Yeah,
So,
no doubt. It's like
and
if you put along the same
that's
train of thought.
psychedelia though, like really, like for anybody who considers themselves like trying to become a shaman or a facilitator or a trip sitter or anything like that, realize like going with the fucking flow is your best asset. Like go into the thing recognizing like I have no fucking idea what's gonna happen. I got a whole bunch of tools and I'm pretty confident we won't die. Let's go. Like
Totally.
that's the best trip sitter, shaman, facilitator, whatever, right there. Because like when the fucking shit goes down, it ain't gonna be the same as the other times that the shit went down. And so you just got to be able to
Right.
think on your feet and be like, okay, yeah, we need to not do these things, and
Right
these things
now.
will probably help. You know.
Yep.
So
Well, even just just help.
ayahuasca, yes, does taste terrible and smells terrible by virtually all accounts. You get your random individual who's like, actually, I really like the taste of it. I think they're bullshitting because it pretty much tastes like dirt. It's pretty much dirt water. It's
Strong
dirt
dirt.
water. You're drinking mud, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, there's not like, why would it taste good? It did nothing to sweeten it. It did not. It's a highly alkaline brew made from water and plants that gets boiled down into a very thick concoction that you call a tea, but you only call it a tea because you took plants and put them into a fucking pot with water and then boiled it down. So functionally, it's a tea. It's a fucking not the kind of tea you would ever want to drink on, like waking up in the morning. Oh, it's a nice
Yeah.
day. Go have a cup of
Breakfast tea.
tea. Not this fucking kind of tea. I mean, effects completely aside, you would never drink it for the flavor. Yuck. Speaking of flavor, though, I am really hungry. I didn't eat before the show. And yeah, so I'm gonna go get food and stuff. I really appreciate you guys. Make sure to tune in to Frank tomorrow night. He's a great storyteller. He's always got something wonderful to say about ayahuasca. And when I say that it's not a science, some people have gotten it figured out pretty fucking good. Most of them, they don't live in the Amazon jungle, and they took a completely different approach than those people do. Those people are like, you just put equal amounts and then boil it down and keep doing it until it looks thick enough, and then you drink it, and like if it doesn't work you drink more, you know what I mean? And they're fine with that. And some Western minds have really like gotten it a lot better. There are fucking pharmacological rules to the shit that are accurate, but yeah, sometimes you just wing it and hope that it works out for the best. And sometimes, Aaron, it doesn't work out for the best. Sometimes it works out for the what the fuck is going on. But, that's okay too, because sometimes life works out for the best and sometimes it works out for the what the fuck is going on. And your ability to navigate both of those spaces will determine the outcome, really, in the long run. Because you're going to have both of them. So, anyways, I'm going to go get food. I love you very much, Aaron. I love everybody that's here. I don't know whether Aaron's going to end the broadcast, but I'm just going to peace out, and Aaron can do what he wants to do because he's fantastic at everything that he does. So I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later.
Bye, Zach. I'll stay on, I guess. Read the comments here. Let's see, the mouse working. Said so. RGB, he or she. I don't think we know yet, or I missed it. Oh, Zach's gone. Otherwise, so you can see his camera there still. We'll leave it there. Why not? Oops, hold on. Oh, well, I guess not. Clicked on the wrong thing. That one. Oops. Oh, he clocked out. I can't do anything about it. Back to comments. He disappeared from the backstage. Anyway. So, so ayahuasca is disgusting. And you shit and you vomit and cry in fear. But then something unspeakable happens beyond words. Yep, that's in my very near future. So Jasmine said that's how basically how Hispanic culture cooks everything. It tastes like dirt or teas. Is that what you're referring to, or is it the other something else he said? This is kind of funny too. So, oh yeah, so yeah, goodbyes and good nights. I'll just sign off here. I just wanted to read that. Oh, I have the scuffed Hamlet thing on. That's funny. I'll just leave it there because I'm in the show. I just want to thank you. Thanks for RGB for stopping in and just participating in the conversation. That is awesome. That's kind of what we want to do: is connect with people and people coming in and participate in the chat and coming on the show. If you're ever interested in chatting, I mean, sounds like you got some awesome things to share. Or if you want to talk about that a little bit or whatever, then we can always message you on the show and come chat with people too. So hope you have a great night. Please remember links in the chat below for the Shipibo one of the native tribes in South America. That because of the COVID stuff, they need help. For $50.50 feeds a family for a month. $450 feeds the village for a month. And one-time donations, GoFundMe, and monthly donations are there. So please check into that if that moves your heart in that way. And that's about it. Love you guys very much. Love you all in chat. RGB, Unicorn Rider, Jasmine. So we have in the last three? Nice. And whoever else was here. Apparently Charlotte was here earlier. Yeah. Anyone else? So we love all you guys. Expanded Fearless Family, Frank Castle, tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific. Frank Fearless on YouTube. And then our show right after. We'll be broadcasting his into ours if it's not over before it's done. His goes long sometimes too. Have a good night, guys. Love you.